And enmeshment is extremely dangerous. Not all the time. I would say most of the time it's not. But enmeshment can be dangerous because if you're in certain, I would say, certain sects of Christianity can be very cult-like. Church of God, not Assembly of God, but Seventh-day Adventist is considered a cult. If you're in any form of Christianity that doesn't push you to get secondary education, delay starting a family until your brain has developed, pushing people toward desiring critical thinking, you can lose your entire life, up to half of your life, trying to figure out what is right for you. I didn't figure it out until I was about 32, even though it took me from 30 to 32 to finally get my head on straight. Enmeshment is sad because instead of developing like regular people in society, you can have muted, delayed, or completely prohibited development. I talked about in previous parts in Enmeshment about how my sexual awakening didn't happen until I was in my late 20s. That's 10 years after the average puberty and sexual awakening happens for people under 18. Enmeshment can delay your cognitive, mental, and neurological development. It's very similar to arrested development, but it's mental. When you grow up in an environment that doesn't allow you to explore your sexuality, your individualism, and it sees anything that deviates from a tiny little expectation, there is very little wiggle room. And the ridiculous idea of gender determines how little or how much more freedom you get. Girls are not allowed in Christianity to discover their sexuality. They're just not allowed. If you're one of the girls that do prior to marriage, you are villainized and basically beat up in some way by the religious alt-right. It's nobody's business what you do with your body. Find people your age that want to do it too. Be safe. It's nobody else's business. If Christians spend as much time policing what sex people have and what sex people are, or what they want them to be, and actually got out, voted to help improve minority lives, indigenous people's lives, queer lives, women's lives, we would have a better society. If these people opened their minds half as much as they open their mouths, we'd all be in a better place. I don't have a problem what people do. Just find people your age and do whatever you want to do. And if you're in the group of people that don't want to do any of that, that's fine. I'm kind of in between. Enmeshment is extremely dangerous. It doesn't allow for children and young adults to become who they are. They feel like they're cheating, betraying, and turning their back on everything they know just to have good mental health and be who they are. Situations like that is not good for mental health. If you can't be who you are with the people who claim to love you, you need new friends. I've recently, in the last 5 months, gone no contact with my family because I just don't get anything from it. I don't get anything good from it. And sometimes you have to be the adult when no one else will, and realize you have standards and you're done being neglected. Enmeshment is a very hard thing to get over. When any kind of individualism and autonomy is not taught, you're basically systematically brainwashed into doing the exact opposite of gaining your own autonomy. It feels like you're betraying yourself to have your own self. If people can't respect and understand the word no or wait, they're not safe people to be around. I grew up with people, even to this day, who will choose their God over me every single time. If they're not comfortable, they're not going to support me. If they're not comfortable, they're not going to make an effort. If they're not comfortable, they're not going to show up for me. You don't have to agree, approve, to support somebody and to be there for them. I'm done making space in my life for people who are cowards. If you can't accept your child for who they are at 32 years old, you have no business having kids. If your name isn't attached to the person and they're not in your skin, you don't have a right to make judgments about people or try to control their lives. And my form of enmeshment was so intense, I've lived outside of my family's house for 8 years, and I can still feel my parents trying to control me. I should not have to hide the things I'm interested in because my family can't handle it. I've gotten to the point where if you have a problem with the things I do, the things I enjoy, the things I wear, you need to be in therapy. Ironically, they will never go. That's their problem. And I'm done being their crutch. My family they rub up against each other philosophically. It's like a cesspool. They all have to agree with each other. And anytime, I remember when my youngest brother, who's 3 years older than me, when he became a Calvinist, when my parents were very Arminius Baptists, they didn't speak for a year, living in the same house, because he wasn't the right type of Christian anymore. Who cares? Who the fuck cares? Who honestly cares what kind of Christian you are? As long as you're a decent human being, who cares? They do. Because if you don't have the right label, the right denomination, you're a threat to everything. And I think the best karma for my family is me. The best karma for control freaks who cannot endure or handle people who are different is to have a daughter who does not label herself heterosexual, is an atheist, a feminist, a queer rights activist, everything they abhor. That's not why I'm who I am. But if that's not karma, teach me. I am walking proof of karma. You shouldn't want to control people's lives. You shouldn't want nor expect every person in your family to have the same beliefs. And if you cannot deal with it, cannot have conversations, cannot accept that everyone is different and they can have their own views without it being personal, without it affecting your relationship, that says a lot about you. And it really does. I'm really tired of having to walk on eggshells around people who can't have a single blipping conversation that normal people should be able to have. If you cannot have a simple conversation about how are you celebrating Easter this year as an atheist, you have a problem. Nobody in my family has researched how to connect with a new atheist because I'm a Christian. They don't want to make an effort. They do not have, nor will they ever gain or pursue the cognitive ability to have these conversations. When it comes to emotional support and finding out how to maintain a relationship with somebody that's very different from your own, they fail. I would call it dead on arrival, but they've never arrived before. They do not have the cognitive capability, and they make no effort to develop it. To talk to somebody, really get to know why I left. They do not want to know. They do not care. And if I had to base my past knowledge of them, they probably act like I never came out, like everything's fine, nothing's wrong. They cannot deal with the reality I'm different. It's so sad. And it is a choice to be that way. They choose every day to be that way. It's not that they can't, they do not want to. They don't want to have their beliefs, their reality threatened, challenged. They do not. They cannot handle it because they don't want to handle it. All you have to do is when you find out somebody's different, you could ask them what changed. Are you in a good place? Would you like to talk about it? It's been 5 months. They don't want to. They can't. They are so beholden to their beliefs. It's like they're hanging off a cliff and it's the only thing saving them. They cannot take anyone else's hand. They cannot inquire about how to save themselves. They cling to that thing. And anyone and anything that makes them second guess what they're clinging to, they react like a scared dog. That's enmeshment. I have people in my family who hide their interests, things they've purchased, you name it, because they're terrified of their parents finding out, because they would have a meltdown like a toddler. I've enjoyed Harry Potter for decades. I never told my parents until recently because my mother said it was from hell. And I'm 32 years old. I should not have to keep what I do a secret because my mother can't handle that there's a difference of opinion. There is no agree to disagree in my family. If you disagree, you are the devil. And anything in the world, my family would find fault with it. Even with Jesus, they would find fault with everything. But they never seem to want to die on the hill of things that would actually impact humanity. They will fight to the death on whether or not a movie is acceptable. But when it comes to white supremacy, they don't have an opinion. But I guess if you vote for white supremacists, you kind of really do have one. They have screwed up priorities. They care more about their God than they do people. And if your reality hinges on everybody else believing the same way and villainizing everyone who doesn't believe that way, maybe you should take a look inwards. When you believe there's no God, no hell, and that everything is a fraud, you really see things for what they are. They're so terrified of something different, of being challenged, because Christians aren't used to being challenged. That's why they created the Christian persecution complex. If white Christians aren't in charge, they create a persecution complex, saying that they don't have the influence they deserve. And when you live in a reality where you do not believe that white, cis, heterosexual men have privilege, there's not much you can convince people of. My family does not believe there is privilege. They don't see a white supremacy problem. They don't see how sexist their beliefs are. They believe that gay people getting AIDS is the best thing for them, which is terrible. They do not want gay people to have equal rights. They do not care. At one time, I had similar beliefs, but it was out of ignorance. You cannot be 70 years old and be ignorant. It's not how it works. If you're 70 years old and you believe that gay people are a sin, you are choosing to believe that. You lived through freaking Stonewall and all of these rights, all of these protests, the civil rights movement. If you still believe that gay people are a sin and you lived through the AIDS crisis, that is a choice. That's not ignorance. And I am the only blue speck in my family. And just because one of my brothers is a progressive Christian does not mean he sees gay people as equal. Does not mean he sees black people as equal. I don't know what he stands for because we haven't talked in over 6 years. Well, 8 years come August. I don't know what a lot of people stand for unless it was the people I lived with for 20 plus years. I had differences of opinion and political stance. I believed in a different form of Christianity before I left home. My mother said, I don't want to hear it. If you don't believe this way, keep it to yourself. What kind of people would say that? You should want to hear what your child thinks and feels. That's why they call it empathy. If you don't care what your kids think and believe, and you're so terrified of your beliefs being rocked by having a simple conversation, maybe you're not as dedicated Christian as you think you are. My family's faith is so fragile, I can't even say the word atheist because my family has banned it. I'm not kidding. They do not want to hear the word atheist because their faith is so fragile. And if it was possible, they would want to make all my life decisions. What God I worship and my religion. If they could and it was legal and they could supernaturally control me, they would turn me into what I used to be. Becoming more interested in Black Lives Matter movements, becoming a queer activist, coming out as an atheist, going to therapy and learning that most of the behaviors I saw as a child were abusive, coercive. Yesterday, my sister told me, I don't recognize who you are and I don't like it. And I said, if you don't like somebody who sees people as equal and worthy of rights, protections, and access, then I don't care what you like. If you actually cared about all kinds of people, you wouldn't want me to return to be a homophobe. And if you don't like that I no longer allow white supremacy near me, then maybe being around you isn't a very good thing for me. raised in an environment that is so tightly controlled by religion, dogma, rules, you are too afraid to step outside. I think 70% of what my family is not their fault. They don't know any better. That's not an excuse. That's just the background. 30% is their fault. By the age of 30, you should have your head screwed on. You have the internet. You have so many ways to educate yourself. 30% of it is their fault. They could do better. They could educate themselves. They could pursue knowledge. They don't want to. Nobody in my family has looked up anything. How can a Christian remain friendly with an atheist who's in our family? Because if they had, they would have made an effort. You don't research something and nothing comes of it. If people really, really wanted to connect with me, even though I'm very different than them, they would have found out how to do it and they would have acted it out. They do not want to make the effort because that effort would require something of them. And they don't want to make that effort. That's the whole point. If their opinions are possibly going to be affected, shaken, something's going to be required of them to maybe pull them out of their comfort zone. They make no intention to do it. And at some point, when you've made your choice, you get the consequences. Even if my parents completely changed their mind, apologized, and became different, I'm done. I'm done with them. I'm done with people who only make an effort when I believe the way they do. I'm done with people who say we're family, but they never show it. And handing me a gift on my birthday is not bonding. If you have not made an effort, you're a stranger. I don't care about blood. I don't care about family. I don't care who's related to whom. People should be interested in what somebody they claim to care about is going through. When nobody asks about mental health, no one asks if anyone's okay. When not one time when I was under the age of 25, between the age of 12 and 25, nobody made my life any easier, less stressful. Never. I was basically alone in my teens and my 20s. My family kept me in the dark about everything. And what they did tell me, I had to unlearn because it's not scientifically and medically backed with science. And when you're told your only value comes from doing what God tells you to do, which means you're never primary because you're a woman, I'm just done with all the crap. I really am done. I don't need anyone else in my life telling me I'm not good enough. You're lovable if you're this. Life is hard enough when you have nobody in your life, but it's harder when you have the wrong people in your life. There's nothing wrong with being by yourself. If that is the best thing for your mental health, recovering from people who just can't let you be your best self, that's okay. That is perfectly fine. And I just don't need other people. if they're not going to make me a better person, if we can't, and I mean can't, have a civil conversation about anything without them bringing God into it, I'm done. I'm done with people who say, well, when you die, you'll know the truth. That's not somebody who loves you and cares about you. People who care about you wouldn't say that to you. And it's taken me 3 years of therapy to find out where I start and where I end. And enmeshment makes it really hard, almost impossible, to find where you start and end. Your interest, your identity, your life has nothing to do with anyone else. And if your eternity hinges on what movies you watch, what clothes you wear, you need to sort out your priorities. I want to be around people that accept me for who I am, make me the best version of myself. They're my biggest cheerleaders, my support group. And in return, I do that for them. I'm not constantly fighting with them. We understand each other. We think the best of each other. We don't try to one-up each other because you'll figure it out when you're dead. I don't want those kind of people. And just because we share the same blood doesn't mean we're not strangers. If people don't want me to live my best life, they're a threat to me in my mental health. I stay away from those people. Everyone deserves the right to live their life on their own terms. And if it insults your God, your personal bowels, I don't care. Everyone deserves better. My choices have nothing to do with your God and your ability to feel safe. When people in my family try to guilt me or talk to me about you're going to hell, I just tell them to shut the fuck up. If I don't ask for people's opinion, keep it to yourself. I deserve better. And the great thing about going to therapy is when you learn that there's better out there, that there are people out there that aren't going to use your individualism, your boundaries, your agency against you, you realize what you don't want. And when you figure out that everyone in your life is what you don't want, you can start getting rid of the things that don't make your life better. If it's not bringing you joy, I'm not going to have it in my life. If it's something I can control, something that I invite into my life and it's not bringing me joy, I get rid of it. I've ended friendships because I no longer want to put up with whatever they do to me. Usually it's a higher cortisol production. Being around the wrong people can make you sick in so many different ways. We all deserve better. And people who make your life worse, make you sick, they will get karma. The kind of person you are either will attract the right kind of people or the wrong kind of people.